This episode of Obscure Chatter is brought to you by diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because straight white male doesn't equal better than. To assume otherwise says everything about you. And now, on to the episode. Welcome to another episode of Obscure Chatter. I'm your host, Terri Doty. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if it isn't, welcome back. I know. The sponsors, I asked you guys on Blue Sky what you wanted the sponsor to be. It was between diversity, equity, and inclusion, or very close second was the Gulf of Mexico, which is, what it's called. It was almost called that. It really did come down to a coin flip. A penny coin flip, which will eventually be able to be like, remember pennies? Starting off on the right foot. Anyway, this is our second episode of 2025, and holy shirt balls. I don't know why I'm editing myself. If you've listened before or ever remotely been interested in anything I have to say, I fucking cuss a lot. So, holy fucking shit balls. I'm exhausted. I'm pretty sure you're exhausted too, and if you're not, I highly recommend you take some time to examine some stuff, and work on being a better person. We're still in the booth. We are still in the booth. I almost recorded yesterday, which it was like 75 yesterday, and today it's 40. So, yeah, I almost hopped into the booth. I had everything set up, and Hoff and I, we turned on Pro Tools. We set up our movie, which we're still listening to movies, and the title of the movie, or the title of the episode, is taken from the movie. It's been the case for pretty much from, the third episode. I think the first two are the ones where I'm like, I don't know, like that one show and like that one Hoff character where, Hoff got some puns. But, we're still in the booth, and I'm curious when we'll have to hop back into the living room. But until then, we're watching. No, you know what? I won't make Steven beep it. I don't think anybody, including Steven, or mostly Steven, misses those beeps. Sometimes I do. Like I was listening to, I forget what episode, I think one of Tia's episodes of that anime show, and she cussed, and we actually edited it for her. I'm like, oh man, we would do that totally different if we were editing that now. But yeah, so here we are. It's toward the end of February. I'm recording this a little earlier. We are moving up our recording dates a little bit more, so we're not rushing by the end of the month to get the episode out. But yeah, I don't know how January lasted a decade and February's just almost done. Like, how does that happen? But, I've been kind of wondering since I hopped out of the booth in January from the last Obscure Chatter episode, what the fuck did we miss while we were recording? Because for those that don't remember, we recorded that on Inauguration Day to just kind of avoid some stuff, and we locked ourselves away, Who else can relate to that? But I've been wondering how we're going to handle this episode now that, so much has happened in such a short amount of time, and pretty much none of it's good. We will have bits of joy here and there. But if you're keeping up with the world, which how can you not? You know that there's a lot of horrible, heinous shit going on. I know. I know. We're all sighing and waiting for that next bit of shock and awe to drop. And I actually read about that. Shock and awe is a legit military strategy meant to overwhelm the enemy, paralyzing them to the point of surrender, which that's it's just wave after wave. So yeah, that might sound a little familiar. Like I heard about it because someone recommended The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, and it all very much made sense. I mean, it was all very apparent. Like I recently rewatched like sometime last month, maybe before the inauguration. I forget when I watched this, but I rewatched V for Vendetta and like watching like the citizens constantly watching all this propaganda and them just being like, fuck off. No, like it's like a concentrated version of that every day. We're like, what? Bullshit. And oh, so that's fun and horrifying, you know? Oh, excuse me. Gotta be really sexy as I fix my runny nose. Runny noses in Texas, those are fun. But yeah, the shock doctrine, the shock and awe stuff, it's supposed to make us want to disengage and disconnect. And for a minute there were just these moments where I'm like, oh, what do I do? What do we do? What do we do? What is this person going to do? Have we checked in with this person? Stephen and I started doing this thing, and it is a very privileged thing. I understand. But I shared it on Blue Sky and got a couple messages about it. Most positive. It's called, I renamed it since then, but it's called No Chaos Before Coffee and No Disasters After Dinner. It's where, unless something is really pressing, we try not to talk about it before we finished our coffee in the morning. And once dinner is done, we're tapped out, unless it's a very pressing thing. And I know that comes from a huge point of privilege to be able to turn off like that. But there have been some pretty dark thoughts that I haven't felt since my thyroid got regulated. For those of you who don't know, if someone was like, hey, I'm depressed, the first thing the doctor would do is check your thyroid. And mine, like, when it finally got to normal levels, because I have a slow reacting thyroid, the second it got regulated, I'm like, oh, fuck, I was depressed as fuck. So yeah, there are moments where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. But yeah, it's all of that is to say, if my talking about this is too much, which we're going to talk about some stuff, I 100% get it. You might be listening to this episode as a method of escape, and I'm with you. We're going to talk about some good stuff, but we can't avoid talking about the bad stuff. As much as I'd love to make this episode filled with nothing but joy and laughs, the world has made that impossible. At least for me. I listen to two main podcasts. I listen to The Bald and the Beautiful and Mike Birbiglia's podcast. I forget if it's Working It Out or Working Out. Or probably something else. But I love both of those programs. And they're just very different vibes than what I do, and they have a co-host to be able to lean on, or they have a guest. It's more than one person most of the time, but yeah, I get it. But if you aren't new, or if maybe this is your first like obscure chatter, but you used to listen to that anime show or whatever it is, like I've delved into some like gut-wrenching topics in the last almost 6 years that I've been doing obscure chatter. And the world at present cannot be something to gloss over. And it just wouldn't be authentic. And again, I 100% understand if that's something that you feel you're not up for. I really do hope this episode can be a bright spot for you, even as we talk about stuff, but and all that we're going to cover. But my hope is that it helps you maybe learn a couple things, think about a couple things. It makes you feel seen, loved. I don't know, but just buckle up. But before we do that, I haven't forgotten about media that we've consumed since the last episode. So before we dive into deeper topics, let's talk about the media that we've consumed since the last time we caught up. First, let's start with music. It's been all over the place. It really has. Like, I'm flashing back. I've been kind of like reliving, like, just seeing all these millennial trends like pop up for all these teenagers and being like, oh my God, like this is exactly how I used to dress. And all that's missing now is me, fighting the good fight, trying to justify why I like Limp Bizkit. Which is an actual thing. Like a friend of mine in high school, we had like a knockdown, drag out, like fight over me liking Limp Bizkit. Like, we stopped being friends for a while, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But yeah, I've been listening to old Limp Bizkit. It's just so funny to be like out with the dog and just be like, I did it all for the nookie. Come on, the nookie. Just Carol's walking by and I'm like, rolling. Oh, just, guys, I did a choreographed dance to Limp Bizkit. Like, my credibility might be compromised. But yeah, aside from Limp Bizkit, there's been Royal Blood. I've been listening to a lot of Wolfmother, which I got into when I worked at Guitar Center a lot. Ram Jam, Fitz and the Tantrums, A Day to Remember, In This Moment, Magic Sword, I Will Never Be the Same, Fall Out Boy, which over Christmas break, my father-in-law's best friend in their little assisted living place, she's just this older woman that sometimes she has her moments, but she, like I mentioned Fall Out Boy for something and she's like, oh my God, I love Fall Out Boy. She listed all their, all their big hits, but like all of their albums, she's like obsessed. And it was like whoa, I did not picture cassette being a ride or die for Fall Out Boy, but yeah, Fall Out Boy, The Warning, MIA, Beastie Boys, Fleetwood Mac, Two Cellos, and Bjork, which I was a little late to the Bjork party. But just brilliant. Like Steven and I had like a 20-30 minute conversation about Bjork, like Friday night, a couple days ago. And just talking about like, hey, I wonder what Bjork is doing because like, we just hadn't heard from her in a while. But then I remembered like there was a TikTok that popped up where this chick was just randomly at a bar and Bjork was DJing. It's just like, oh my God, is that fucking Bjork? Love Bjork. Bjork it up. So that's music for this episode. Hopefully that's a pretty decent mix. This morning I've been doing a lot of TLC. Honestly, like I was getting ready and don't go chasing waterfalls, which I feel really dumb, but I only learned in the last like year that song's about unprotected sex. There are so many songs growing up. You're like, wait, I was singing like obviously there was one TLC song when I was visiting my dad in South Texas. Like and he was living in one of the nicer trailers we lived in, and he like came outside because I'm just like, if I want to take it, no, my God, it was that Salt and Pepper. TLC was oh my God. I want to say it's Let's Talk About Sex. That is TLC, right? Oh my God, I'm just failing because it's TLC or Salt and Pepper. And no, I don't. But anyways, I was talking about sex, and I was like 10. My dad's like, get in the fucking house. But damn it, now I gotta listen to both after this episode. Don't at me. I'm shaming myself for not knowing which one. Damn it. But yeah. As far as movies, we last month we watched some new ones, and Steven and I are still like visiting things that he hasn't seen or vice versa. But it's really hard for him to be like, oh, you haven't seen this, because I've seen a lot of things. But I perhaps reintroduced him to The Black Cauldron. Like as we were watching it, Steven's like, this all seems really familiar. I'm like, I don't know. Cause he was like, he would have had to have been about 6 or 7 when this came out. And it just seems like a perfect like movie for a 6-7-year-old to watch. And oh my gosh, watching it again, like John Hurt is the main bad guy. That man's voice is so fucking good. I miss him. I really do. But yeah, that we watched Anastasia, which again, beautiful animation. It was a little jarring. Stephen and I like kept like pausing because I was talking about how different John Cusack's vocals were compared to everybody else. And how I think John Cusack was mumbling a little bit too much. And Stephen's like, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, it bothers me. Like, we got into, like, this is this person's first viewing. And I'm like, what about this recording? Like, did they not, like, hit John's mouth? Because, like, hit John's mouth right? Because Meg sounds fine. Kelsey sounds fine. Chris sounds fine. And, I mean, Hank Azaria is chewing the scenery. Come on. Like, I may not be the best person to see a movie with, is what I'm telling you, I guess, as I'm talking about this. But yeah, another one that we saw was Odd Thomas, which I had never seen. I don't know why it just took so long for it to register. It's based on a series of Dean Koontz novels, and it stars Anton Yelchin, who I miss so much. I think it pains me to think about where he could be right now just as a person, let alone in his career, if things had worked out differently. But it was, I don't think Odd Thomas is going to be for anybody or for everybody, but I really, really liked it. And Steven loved it. But the ending shocked the shit out of me. And if you've seen it, you're like, really, Terry? That, like, you didn't see that coming? Like, I didn't. I didn't. I cried. Anton had a good cry face. He's one of the reasons, like, the Fright Night remake that was with Tennant and Colin Farrell, like, that's actually not a bad remake. I'm trying to think what else. Only Lovers Left Alive. He's good in that, even though he's not remotely a main character. He was so good. And I'm telling you, this kid, because I remember him. I'm really into the Alex Cross movies. I've never read the books, and I actually really do want to check out the show. But Anton is a little Russian boy in Along Came a Spider. And I was rewatching it recently. Oh, little baby Anton. But yeah, check out Odd Thomas. You might enjoy it as much as I did. Maybe less. And that's okay. We watched World War Z also. And I used to be a really big Brad Pitt fan. And I'm just not anymore. I totally like ruined the mood of this one shot because Brad Pitt's doing his Brad Pitt thing. And I just, out of nowhere, Steven's like really into it. I'm like, Brad Pitt is aging like an old white woman named Diane. And he's like, pause it. What is wrong? What is wrong with you? I don't know, but sometimes it's hard for me to remember. This is Tyler Durden, you know. This is a guy that I used to be obsessed with because of his cop character in Cool World. You know, the guy that Thelma got to hang out with. Oh my God. Anyways, he hooked up with Gina Davis and Thelma and Louise. I'm like, wait, did he hook up with Thelma or Louise? I think he hooked up with Thelma. But yeah, to go from that to like, I don't know, Brad Pitt doing his Brad Pitt thing in World War Z. I loved the book. I've met Max Brooks. I met him back in 2026, but hello. 2006. The day after my first date with Steven. Time's fun. But it is completely divorced from the book, but the second half makes sitting through the first half worth it. I'm hit or miss on fast zombies. But you get to... There's just a point I'm like, hey, Peter, like a Doctor Who character is going to show up. And hey, Peter Capaldi showed up. Like, holy shit. But yeah, it wasn't horrible. Like I don't know, the way that people like shit talk it, I was expecting like, just like fast CGI, da-da-da-da-da. And that all happened. But I actually didn't mind it. And then last night we saw Freaky. With Catherine Newton and Vince Vaughn. And we had a really good day yesterday. And then I'm in the process of trying to compile all my digital media and seeing what I actually own and what is something I will never own, as I'm a Kindle user. And they're about to get rid of the download to USB option. So I'm like, oh, God, I'm worried about like all the books I own. Just seeing what I can like actually save, that I've purchased. I'm not talking about pirating or anything like that. So I was like, I started to get it in my head. I'm like, oh God, I spent thousands of dollars on this stuff. And, but I just got in my head about some stuff. And so I was like, let's watch a random movie. Steven got Chinese from our favorite little takeout place. And we watched Freaky. I'd been meaning to watch it, and I don't know if we've officially given Catherine Newton her flowers as a Scream Queen, but we need to, because she's done a lot. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, she was in Supernatural for a while. She was in a Paranormal Activity movie. She was in Abigail. Lisa Frankenstein, I'd kind of still put in the horror camp. And then Freaky, I've got to be missing at least 2. I really, really do. But yeah, that's Scream Queen shit, baby. But, it was really funny. But the gore was still good too. So there's that. Yeah. Good times. Good time for movies. Good times for anything that involves escape. As far as shows, we finished Robotech. I finished Robotech. My first viewing of Robotech. And, it ended pretty well. And then I was like, oh, where's the movie? I couldn't find like the first movie, because apparently it's like 86 that it came out, and it's kind of like difficult to find. Steven and I like combed through stuff to try to find it, and we just couldn't find it. So we just skipped to Robotech 2, and I was confused by some stuff. But I think just the series on its own is great. The movies I could leave. It doesn't matter. But yeah, and then I've been watching Kitchen Nightmares. Kitchen Nightmares, Bar Rescue, Judy Justice, formerly known as Judge Judy. Those are 2 different shows. But just shows where people get yelled at. I don't know what that says about me, but it's fun. And we're still rewatching The X-Files. I'll say I haven't watched The X-Files since it was airing. And I did recently find, while thrift shopping, I found a VHS of the 99 X-Files movie. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, let's watch that. Let's go. I am having a little difficulty with how Scully's treated. Like, I'm on season 3 right now. And it's just, yeah, like every character goes through some stuff, but the way that Scully's being treated has really been bothering me. I can't really put my finger on it, but this is the same show where a study was done, and found that, like 63% of women who were familiar with Agent Scully and the X-Files had like, a high percentage chance of pursuing a STEM career. It is literally called the Scully effect. So for that same show to be a show that, again, I know Mulder goes through stuff too, but the way, it's just different. It's different when it's a woman. It is. And the trauma that Mulder goes through, is just very different. I'm still watching it and I'm still into it. There's still some phenomenal episodes, but sometimes there are situations that Scully's put in that are uncomfortable to watch in a way that I don't think they meant for it to be. Maybe it's just the way it's aging, but still into it, but it's just kind of wild that's popped up a little bit. As far as books are left, and then we'll get into some funner stuff, or less fun stuff. let's be real. But I got a copy of The History of Sketch Comedy by Keegan-Michael Key and Elle Key, which I believe is his wife. For those who don't know or haven't been paying attention, I'm a huge Key and Peele fan. And I've been watching Keegan since his Mad TV days. So like watching Transformers 1, I knew before the effect was taken off of Keegan's voice that it was Keegan playing B. I love him so much. But it was a really cool book, and I found a signed copy. So I'll probably never get rid of that. But it's a really fun read, too. I read book 3 in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, Onyx Storm. I will not talk about it because there are at least 4 friends that I need to break some shit down with first. So I won't spoil anything. The spicy readers, there is a book called Man-Eater by Emily Antoinette. It's about a male witch and a succubus, and spoiler alert, they're gonna fall in love. There you go. Yeah, like some, and then I read Story of Your Life and Other Stories by Ted Chiang. I apologize if I'm butchering that name, but it was the basis for Arrival, which, you know, I've talked about on the show. Like, Arrival punched me in the gut repeatedly, and then I was like, "Are you going to tell me thank you?" Like, no. But that was a fun visit. But Arrival's one of those movies I've seen once, and it really fucked me up. But I don't know if I could watch it again. But it might be worth a single other watch, knowing what I know from the end of the movie. And now from the book. And then I've revisit a few things, some things that I've read here and there multiple times, like 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake by Sarah McLean. I reread Showmance and Fomance by L.H. Cosway. And I reread 1984 for reasons. But yeah, so that is our media. That's our media for this episode. Check some stuff out. Let me know what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're listening to. And who knows? You might turn me on to something that I haven't checked out before. Or I need to check out again. That's always fun. But nobody messaged me about me mixing up TLC and salt and pepper. I can't deal with that in my life right now. I feel like I consumed a lot more than everything that I listed, and I do cherry pick things here and there. Like, I typically don't talk about things that I've reread or rewatched that much, but yeah, it's been kind of like falling back to loud, yelly reality TV and just, randomness. Like, when I'm in my office working, writing, I'll typically have like a little movie on my little TV VCR DVD combo that I have in my office now, and I just had like Hellraiser going all day, like 1, 2, and 3, and then, hey, let's watch Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, all day. Oh, it's over. Let's start it again, Johnny. Let's go. Sometimes it's just I don't have the bandwidth for something new that I could potentially hate sometimes. But then there are fun surprises too. But I'd say the media has definitely helped in terms of escaping or running to another world. Some are more pleasant than others. What was it? Stephen King said, books are a uniquely portable magic. And my friend Erin, hello Erin, even made me a lovely bookmark that I keep in my journal with that quote. And all forms of media have been a magic. And yeah, I mean, you either get that or you don't. Media is magic. There you go. I hope some of my February media called out to you as a potential portable magic. Again, let me know when you decide to listen to, watch, read. I do really love hearing from you guys. And I've been hearing from y'all more on Blue Sky, which is fun, but you can still reach us at obscurechatter@gmail.com. That's where a lot of you guys gave me my sponsorship request. And then just through some social, because I've gotten to know a lot of you guys over the years through that anime show and this, and just in general, like meeting you guys at cons when I used to go to cons. It's not saying that that will never happen again, just probably not anytime remotely soon. I've gotten messages from y'all, and especially from those of you outside the US. And most of the messages have boiled down to, are you okay? And or, is this shit really happening? It is. It really is, and I cannot really stress to you, although I will try, how much I wish it wasn't. As far as my being okay, I'm not. Like, I am in terms of, like, I am safe, and my world is not imploding the way so many other people's are. And mentally, though, I'm not okay. When people ask, like, how are you? My go-to response has been, I literally said this, like, to my dentist, and he's the only one that went, yeah. Is the horrors persist, but so do I. And honestly, anyone answering like, hey, how are you? With like, oh, I'm good, I'm great. They're lying, or they're probably horrible. Is that too much of a generalization? I don't care. I just don't care. But, yeah, it's been a lot to think about, and it's been a lot to, like, digest. Like, I'm low to no contact with most of my family, and those reasons are my own. I've talked about it here and there, but, like, for those that don't know, my family is very multi-ethnic. Especially as a kid, I considered myself lucky to just have so many family members from different backgrounds. And I know that helped me see through a bunch of bullshit that I think took longer for some other people that are the same age as me. But that doesn't mean that I didn't get, like, a fuck ton of bad shit thrown at me along the way. And this is not talking about family. This is people. Well, no, it is. It's talking about both, actually. From a very early age, like, I knew that certain family hated others for no other reason other than the color of their skin or the language they spoke. Being like, hey, where's da-da-da-da-da? Like, oh, da-da-da is with da-da-da. They made their choice. Like, whoa. Okay. My father's parents nearly cut him off entirely for marrying my mom before I existed, before my brother existed. That tells you kind of people they were dealing with. But he took the chance, and, they were together. They loved each other very much, but those two had a lot of problems outside of that. But, like, I remember I lived with my grandma for a little while there after my parents divorced. And she spoke Spanish in front of me. And as a kid, I spoke a lot of Spanish. And then just people stopped speaking Spanish around me. That's what I think a lot of people don't understand when you're Hispanic or Latin, like me. I grew up around nothing but my beautiful Mexican culture. And there would just be so many times as I was getting older, they're like, oh, damn shame you don't speak Spanish. Like, it's not up to, like, why did y'all stop speaking it around me? It's so much harder to learn it as an adult. But when I was living with my grandmother, she alternated between English and Spanish, and some people were nicer about my grandmother in a way that I didn't fully grasp when I lived with her. Like, they would only talk to me, like, tell your grandmother this, see if she understands that. All this shit, like, whoa. And again, you know, you're like, I'm pretty sure I know what's going on here, but what the fuck? And my grandma, Maria, constantly told me how lucky I was for having a white last name. She actually, like, constantly brought it up. Like, no, you want to go far in life? Have a white last name. And I'm like, I'm 11. Don't know what to do with that, Maria. You know, like, what is the kid supposed to do with that type of shit? You know, I'll continue having my last name. And, you know, I gotta be honest. I've broken down a few times over the last couple weeks, like fully broken down. Like, I have been sober for over a year and haven't been tempted once to have a drink. Like, once. I actually don't miss drinking at all. But I have been smoke-free, cigarette-free since 2007, and I want a cigarette every day. If someone around me is smoking, my mouth waters. And I don't know what to do with that. So if I am ever to the point where I break down, like, know that I've given up. I haven't been tempted to buy cigarettes, but oh my God. Like, as I'm talking about it, my hands are ringing because I'm thinking about just holding. When I first stopped smoking, I would legit, like, cut straws to about the length of cigarettes and just, like, hold them between my fingers and, like, and I'm finding myself being like, man, I need like a stage cigarette or something. Maybe I should go to, like, the magic shop or something and, like, just get, like, some fake cigarettes. Like, that's where I'm at. And probably cost less than actual cigarettes. I don't know. But yeah, I also broke up a friend group. I broke up a friend group because I learned that one friend was very pro Orange Man. And I debated when I learned about this, like, I was going back and forth on, like, do I talk to her about this? You know, because I loved, yes, I'm using past tense, loved this friend. Like, was so happy that she came into my life. But I ended up not reaching out because my reasoning was she was seeing the exact same shit that I was. And by continuing to follow these people on social media and all of that, that's her telling the world, as far as I'm concerned, that she was fine with it. That might be a little overdramatic for some people, but I really don't give a shit. So I messaged everybody but her in the group. I'm like, hey, I don't mean to make this awkward, but I'm having trouble because I just learned this. Another friend cut them off. Another one is just like, yeah, no, I'm done. And the other's like, we called each other, talked about some shit, and they 100% got where I was coming from, but they were dealing with, like, a loved one's health problems. So them taking time out of a very serious situation to talk to me, and just kind of, like, tell me, like, you're not crazy. You're you're allowed to feel how you feel, do what is right for you. And yeah, and that sucked, but I felt lighter when I, like, broke that up. But it sucked. It hurt to do, and I cried, but I can't have that shit in my life. Anybody that can, I want to know where you get the strength to, like, deal with somebody that, like, at their core hates you. Like, I understand that I'm a Mexican American. That is very different than being an immigrant. But like, this is like, even if I weren't remotely Latino, how can you be okay with this stuff? And, like, as if the state isn't weird enough. Like, Texas hasn't been a fucking, like, festival. I mean, unless we're, like, talking about, like, Fire Fest. It's been especially fucktastic lately. And so many people, well, Texas got what they voted for. Do you think I voted for a man whose skin can only be described as New Testament orange? Do you think I voted for Greg Abbott? Do you think I voted for Ted Cancun Cruz? No, I didn't vote for ICE agents to lock up a Home Depot down the street and make people identify themselves. I legit saw people going into, like, the parking lots and searching with flashlights and making people identify and pulling people to the side. This happened down the street from where I fucking live. And people are making joke TikToks about, oh man, this is great, and it's an empty Home Depot. Fuck off. I didn't vote for this. Like, stores and shops and restaurants, it's been pretty quiet. And Texas, for those who might not know, it's a huge Hispanic Latino population. It used to be Mexico, for fuck's sake. And this state is my home. And I don't want to leave my home. I don't want to leave. This shit is like nightmare fuel. It's like a bad bit of fiction. Like, when we talk about like future movies and dystopian da-da-da-da-da, all of that is actually really cookie cutter compared to the reality. And everyone involved is fucking dumb. They're so fucking stupid. So when you have like friends in Europe, friends that are living in Germany being like, you guys are in trouble. Like, yeah, it's not a great sign. Because obviously they've seen shit and they know the history probably better than we do because our history keeps getting hidden from us, And Steven and I like had a couple of talks. It's like, do we like really talk about this? Like, talk about moving or? And we've done it before in the past, but this time it's felt different. We are staying because this is our home. I wish others had the luxury of staying. And that decision not being made for them. Like, actually, like an hour before I started the show, I watched this guy breaking down in his car because his mom had just gotten deported. And he had like no news on where she was, how long it would be before he could find out where she was. And he also mentioned, he's like, she just paid her fucking taxes. Like, for fuck's sake. And okay, let me take some water. Because here's the thing, like, I'm not trying to sound preachy or anything like that. These are all just things that are happening in my brain. And to any, how do I put this? I want you to leave this in, Steven, but I need you to get on mic for me so I can hear you. Do you think I'm allowed to say the word Nazi? Yes. You think I'm allowed to say it? Yeah. Well, no, I'm just making sure that I'm allowed to say it without, like, one of our streaming platforms being all, ugh. Okay, Nazi. Cool. To any Nazis that might be listening. And that's what you fucking are. You are a Nazi. If you happen to be tuned in, fully commit to the bit. Fully commit. You don't like Mexicans? No more Mexican food for you. Eat your bland-ass food. Tequila? No more. Show us how much better you are, If you're from mass deportation, show us. That'll show us. I'm fucking serious. Because you don't get to embrace the culture in one breath and spew visceral hatred of its people with the next. You don't get to fucking do it. I got caught up watching all the protests. I debated whether or not I could go, but I was worried about highways. I was about the highways being shut down and me like being counterintuitive. I wish Texas was more walk friendly, but I saw so many beautiful protests. But there was this one image that like I took a screen grab of, and I've just been kind of revisiting it, and it was from the first day of the protests in LA. This was a couple weeks ago now, I think. And it was just one guy, the first guy, just walking onto the highway and waving the Mexican flag, like wide stance, just waving it so beautifully, and the wind catching it just right. And there were all these police in front of him, and he just stood like he was 10 feet tall and couldn't be bothered to even acknowledge them. It was fucking beautiful. It was beautiful. These are human beings. Immigrants deserve basic human rights, and that shouldn't be a hot take. They have a right to feel safe. And for the record, being undocumented isn't a crime. It's a civil violation, but yeah, not a criminal offense. And don't fucking at me, because I just don't fucking care if that makes you go, well, actually, like deportation is part of the legal process and it shouldn't be used as punishment. It's like, you know what else is a civil offense? Being late on your taxes, illegally crossing the street, pirating a movie. You really want to get fucking deported for downloading Sergeant Frog, motherfucker? Like, same camp. And all of this is to demonize the 1% that, all of this is to demonize, like, what 1% has deemed as other. And I've talked about this before. The anybody considered other. Ooh. And that list of who is considered other just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And they have the audacity to call these people minorities, feeling awfully like the majority. It is wild how much change is happening from day to day, and it's hard to keep up with. And again, it's about setting boundaries and knowing when to stop. And again, obviously, I made our sponsor DEI for a reason. And when I got requests, everybody said DEI. I intentionally said diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's... I've been actively using diversity, equity, and inclusion instead of DEI because the letters make it too much of a throwaway for some people, probably Nazis. And actually saying diversity, equity, and inclusion, actually saying that and asshats being like, yeah, I'm against that. It's a much harder sell than 3 letters, if that makes sense. And again, I'm going to call you assholes out there that say shit like this, Nazis. I really don't care if you think that's harsh. You don't want to be called a Nazi. Quit acting like a fucking Nazi, you Nazi. You want to erase trans people from existence? Sounds like some Nazi shit. You want to ban and burn books? That sounds like some Nazi shit. You want to spew DEI or woke in the same vigor that Peepaw used to say the N-word? That sounds like some fucking Nazi shit. Should I continue? So yeah, I feel a certain way. It's all about branding. It really is. It's all about branding. It's sharecropping, penal labor, Jim Crow. Now it's woke, DEI. Racism is persistent, and it's still here, and a bunch of Nazis are trying to make it harder to identify. Don't let them. Sit with that. Being against diversity, equity, and inclusion is straight out of the white supremacist handbook. I mean, or it would be if one of them knew how to work a fucking printer. Feel honestly, feel however the fuck you want to feel, but the facts are facting, and they don't give a fuck about your fucking feelings. I shared this. I think it's one of the last things I've shared on X, and it was just a video of the bishop that spoke at the service, and oh my God, the woman she was, the confidence and just courage it took to talk in front of these people. But I don't know who else caught what the bishop said, and I know a lot has happened since this first couple of days, but I have a weird history when it comes to organized religion, but there are those that give me a lot of hope within those communities. And one of them is Bishop Marianne Edgar Buddy. I want to say it's Buddy, but I mean, what she said, it was 2 minutes total, but just basically saying, have mercy on people in your country that are scared now. And gay and lesbian and transgender children that are afraid, and that he needs to have mercy on communities who are really afraid that their family members are going to get taken away from them. And basically just to show mercy, show kindness, and honor the dignity of people. And all she asked for was kindness and mercy for marginalized groups. And New Testament Orange Man called her nasty, not compelling, or smart. He called her service boring and uninspiring. I showed the video to Steven, and he's like, look at this bitch, JD Vance, with his shit underline eyeliner, just being just making this stink eye. It's just wild to see, wow, okay. And if you don't, it wasn't until after that I'm like, what a wonderful woman. But I learned afterward that she's actually tied to Matthew Shepard. I don't have the kind of time right now to dive into who Matthew Shepard was, but he was a 21-year-old man who had his life ripped away from him. And Marianne actually helped put his body to rest. Do you know, it actually took 20 years for Matthew Shepard to actually have a final resting place. The family, just doing the funeral, had so many protests show up, their initial funeral, all those years ago, over 20 years. And so the family was just really worried that, his final resting place was going to get desecrated. So, Reverend Gene Robinson and Bishop Marianne, invited the Shepard family to have Matthew interred at the Washington National Cathedral. And this is who New Testament Orange Man is trying to demonize. It really is the worst timeline. It really, really is. And history is not going to look back favorably at this time. Flip through a book before it's snatched out of your fucking hands. Reference anything that is happening right now. to another point in time and tell me if the people doing this shit were considered the good guys. I really, really want you to. And there, I was talking to Stephen about this. There's this book I read about the Soviet Union, because things aren't normal. That it's a term called. There's this term called hypernormalization. I forget the name of the book, but it's about the life people had in the 70s and 80s during the Soviet Union, and how systems were failing, and how nobody could see anything that wasn't the status quo. So pretty much everybody just worked on maintaining it, all to keep the look of functionality, the look of a functioning world. And that disconnect that at least I'm feeling, maybe you're feeling it too, you probably are, that's hyper-normalization. You know what's real and you know what isn't, and nothing makes sense, but we're all supposed to maintain this illusion of normalcy, normality, for the sake of the status quo. So basically, boiling it down to, you're not crazy, and don't let anybody tell you that you are. At least for that reason. My God. This is not the future I was hoping for. I don't know who was, but you're a piece of shit, probably. And if you're listening to me still, I'm guessing this wasn't the future you were hoping for either. Or maybe even the episode you were hoping for. But I have a lot of feelings. And so, despite the horrors, some good things did happen this month. Let's focus on that. I shared a link on my Instagram and my Blue Sky. This blogger, or she had a Substack. I forget. Her name was Erin, like Erin in the morning or something. I forget exactly what it is. I still have the link somewhere in my Blue Sky. If you want it again, just ask me via obscurechatter@gmail.com, and I will send you the link. I think it's still active, but it's for Girl Scout cookies, and it was to help trans kids in the Girl Scout community reach their goals. I shared it, and because I thought it was fucking neat. They were very protective of the kids' identities, but this is just a way for trans kids to feel safe and still hit their goals for their troops. I was a daisy. I was a Girl Scout. I was a brownie. I loved it. And then I just kind of stopped because I think it got too expensive for my family. I don't know if we ever just flat out said that, but it was a commitment. We bought 4 boxes from Ariel, and they shipped out pretty quick. I don't know when this happened, but my Thin Mints, which are my guilty pleasure, my Thin Mints came in a box, but everything else came in packaging, and I was like, I was so thrown by them not being boxes. I'm like, how? But yeah, it was nice to be able to do, and I think because so many of us were sharing that link and hyping it up, that I think a lot of those kids were able to reach their goals, which is so cool. And they varied from all over the place. It was a lot of fun to be able to take part in that. And by fun, I mean devastating to my tummy, because my tummy likes cookies. It likes cookies a lot, especially Thin Mints. We got Thin Mints, Adventurefuls. Those were a first time buy, but those are dangerous in the Doty Hoff house. Lemonades, which were pretty good, and peanut butter patties, which, hey, you can never go wrong with peanut butter in this house. You just really can't. But, yeah. And on that note, I had a couple of people, this one person, basically to anybody that shared the link was like, hey, you're putting these kids in danger, just so you know. I'm like, girl, I'm trying to do something positive and like just kind of sharing some joy. And I looked and they had spammed everybody that shared the link. I'm like, I just didn't trust it. But yeah. They're very good at protecting the kids' identities for those concerned. And I just, I wish there was more we could do. We're donating what we can when we can. And as this Laverne Cox did, she was on The View recently, and I actually did write down what she said because I loved this so much. But at the end of the day, trans people are less than 1% of the population, and trans people are not the reason you can't afford eggs. We're not the reason you can't afford health care, and we're not the reason that you can't buy a house or that your rent is too high. I think they're focusing on the wrong 1%. And yep, beautiful. See, aside from that, I've been doodling a bunch, sharing more of my doodles. Ghost doodles. Whether or not you like my ghosts, I don't care. Just sharing them because they bring me joy. And I even made something for Steven's birthday that I was like, you can share it or not share it. He's like, no, this is for me. His birthday was really chill. Steven is 47, basically dead. I know. But we kept it really chill. Like I pulled up The Simpsons little section where the Ramones sing "Happy Birthday" to the Burns is what I was about to say, Mr. Burns. And we had a chill breakfast. We did some CD VHS shopping at a local shop. We ate way too much tres leche cake, a chocolate tres leches cake. I quit dairy, but there's only so much I can do in a world where tres leches exists. I'm sorry. I just can't. Can't let that go. But yeah, Claudia's Bakery in Bedford or Hearst, I forget. Claudia's Bakery, beautiful. You can order a custom cake, but in a pinch, you can go to the store and just get a cake. Beautiful. And also got some Valentine's Day cookies from them, which did not last a day. They did not last a day in this house. It was a good birthday. And a little bit before Steven's birthday, it was Steve's birthday. I miss doing that as I'm reviewing that anime show episodes that Steve. And now I'm just like, hey, Steve. But I legit, like, it was his birthday and it's in my calendar. It has been for years. You know, did my little, like, thanks for being born. And then was like, is this the big 3-0? And he's like playing, like he's just like, yeah, da-da-da. And like, oh, well, rad. And he's like, I'm starting to get concerned that you actually think I'm turning 30. Like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm 36. And I like legit typed out what I was thinking in real time. I'm like, no, you can't be 36. I've known you since your early 20s and we've known each other for over 10 years. Oh my God. Yeah. Why did I think you were 30? He's like, pandemic, probably. Yeah. That was just like, oh no. Like, I hope you got a good laugh out of that. But yeah. Other bits of joy. Yeah. Before Valentine's Day, there was Galentine's Day, which there's doom scrolling and then there's hope spots or whatever the fuck. I got this, I think, from Francesca Ramsey, where sometimes just go through your contacts and scroll up and down. And that's what I did on Galentine's Day, which I don't celebrate, but it was coined from Parks and Rec. And I do like this, is I went through my contacts and just hit all the chicks in my life that are awesome and just wish them a happy Galentine's Day. And each one of those led to cute little conversations. I highly recommend doing that. Just scroll through your contacts, see who you haven't talked to in a while. And, be surprised what might pop up. Yeah. And my friend Marissa got a new job, which I found out about. I wrote a recommendation for her, and then like 2 days later, she's like, I got the job. I was at a bookstore, and I went, fuck yeah, like really fucking loud, and like, I'm just really excited about this, Stephen King novel. I don't know, or like whatever. It was just funny and like scaring the shit out of like a woman next to me, like near like a bunch of like Danielle Steele. I don't know. But yeah, and then Valentine's Day was fine. I'm not a bit, yeah, it is corporate, But, yeah, we just, I got Stephen a Pee Wee Herman card. He got me another ghost mug, which it's really cute. I love ghosts. I love the little ghost things. I don't know when I finally owned up to it, but I do. And I also checked out in Hearst, I believe, Little Plank Vintage, which if you are local to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, check it out. They're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And they've got everything. I posted one photo, but I got a lot of new tapes. The owner and I geeked out way too much about the Romeo and Juliet soundtrack from the 96 movie. And they had some good vintage clothes, not just for skinny bitches either, which I always love. Did my monthly visit to Horror Freak, which is great. I went back to a Thai place that I stopped going to because I found a closer Thai place. That closer Thai place has started sucking, so I went back. It's Thai Tip in Hearst. It's amazing. And that was a nice, yeah. So yeah, there were some good things that went on. There were some good things. They in no way overshadowed the bad shit, though, obviously. But we try. We try. This was a lot. I understand. I know that. And that's all I really got on that. Really, thank you so much for listening and allowing me to vent, inform, gripe, and everything in between. It's a weird time that only promises to get weirder. And I'm sorry. I wish I could leave that more on a more hopeful note. But we will talk again. We'll talk again soon. And if you'd like to keep up with me between episodes, I also post a lot of stuff within my stories in Blue Sky. My stories on Instagram. TEEDOTALLY. T Doty. Or just search my name. It'll be me. Look for some ghost doodles. And Obscure Chatter is also on Blue Sky. Anything on X we're typically not really keeping up with right now. Yeah, so until next time, read good shit. Watch good shit. Listen to good shit. Don't be a shit. And call Nazis on their bullshit. Bye.